Please rise for the pledge. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll, please.
Trustee Capoli?
Here.
Trustee Magnuson?
Here.
Trustee Capoli?
Here.
Trustee Chandler?
Here.
Trustee Hyman?
Here.
Trustee Buziak?
Here.
President Gilbert?
Here.
Attorney McGrail? Treasurer Wissat? Here. Clerk Guerrero?
Approval of agenda. I have a couple items that I need to add. One will be the CDBG funding allocation, and I'm going to put it at the top of mine. We can call it
8.1.
yeah. And I also need to add the IDEF ordinance. It's the illicit discharge ordinance that's required. And we will put that right up under the CDBG funding.
So call it 8.2.
Please.
For unfinished business, village manager ordinance. I believe that tonight we're just going to be talking about village manager RFP, not necessarily ordinance. So we could strike the ordinance part of it.
Any others?
Under new business, can we put yo and yo on there? It's just a quick question.
You probably keep that under unfinished then. It's about the audit.
It's just to ask a question.
Yeah.
Put under unfinished?
Yeah.
Okay.
A motion in order.
Motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Support.
Properly moved and supported that we adopt the agenda as amended. Any questions on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Public comment on the agenda. Being none. Approval of the minutes for December 12th.
Motion to approve the minutes for December 12th.
Second.
Been properly moved and supported that the minutes of December 12th be approved. Questions on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Consent agenda.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Been properly moved and supported that we approve the consent agenda as presented. Questions on the motion? Roll, please.
Trustee Chandler?
Yes.
Trustee Capoli?
Yes.
Trustee Magnuson?
Yes.
Trustee Dean?
Yes.
Trustee Buziak?
Yes.
Trustee Hyman?
Yes.
President Gilbert?
Yes. President items. A1, CDBG funding. The motion's in order.
I make a motion that we allocate $1,000 to Turning Point, $1,000 to Care House, and $335 to the farmers market out of our remaining CDBG funds.
Support.
For clarification, that's the New Baltimore Farmers Market?
Correct.
Did I hear support? It's been moved and supported that we allocate the dollars that have been mentioned Any questions on the motion? Roll, please.
Trustee Chandler?
Yes.
Trustee Myson?
Yes.
Trustee Polly?
Yes.
Trustee Heath?
No.
Trustee Giesman?
Yes.
Trustee Freiberg?
Yes.
President Gilbert?
Yes. A2, the IDEP ordinance.
Good evening. Happy New Year. Last year, we submitted the MS4 application, the updated progress report to DEQ, and part of the review comments, they requested an IDEP ordinance to be adopted to address any illicit discharges and how the village will deal with any discharges that is part of the permit. Once we get the permit, how these will be handled. So I discussed this matter with President Dilbert, gives the go-ahead, and created this ordinance, and it's part of the package. 12-page ordinance, illicit discharge elimination plan, and I believe it's the related number would be 495 dash.
No, that's incorrect.
Incorrect.
It's going to
Okay.
be 349.
349.
Yes.
No dash.
No dash.
So we are here tonight requesting council approval to move forward with adoption of this ordinance as part of the MS4 permit.
To break it down into my kind of language, we've identified at least 2 locations within the community where their sewer lines actually connect to the stormwater lines. And this was done, we found this out during the SAW grant televising project that we just completed. And of course, the county is really big on this illicit discharge. You know, that's one of the things that, you know, they think contribute to our pollution of Lake St. Clair and the Glen River and all those things connected. But in order for us to notify the homeowners, we have to have an ordinance in place, which allows us to go after the homeowners and enforce them to make the proper connections.
Just an FYI, we don't have it in our packet.
It's not in the package?
No.
We don't have to do that.
Yes.
Question, so when these homes were constructed, their lines were legitimately, sewer lines were legitimately, at that time, approved, signed off?
I don't know who approved them, if there was an inspection on them. The 2 houses that we identified are better than 20 years old, probably closer to 30. And I'm just going to make an assumption here that the contractor, when he tied into the nearest pipe, which is on his side of the road, and that's the storm on his side of on that side of the road. The sanitary sewer is actually on the other side of the road. And these are 2 houses in the same block, and it happened.
It's not uncommon. I mean, accident happens whether it's intentional or not. Sanitary sewer sometimes get connected to the storm.
So I mean, like realistically, what's going to have to happen to get it corrected? They're going to tear up the road?
No, they were born under the road. Yeah. Yeah, they would have to born in the road, bring in a contractor, born in the road, and make the proper connection. I think the city of, just recently, either Fraser or Warren, they identified an apartment complex that was discharged into the storm sewer.
Something that costs like tens of thousands of dollars or something? I mean, it seems pretty.
I don't think a 6-inch or 6-inch connection for a house, and I don't know what the cost would be, but it's gonna cost a couple grand. Yeah.
Now, they don't get grandfathered in or anything?
No, you don't grandfather in illicit discharge.
I'm just saying if we sign off on it. I don't know.
No, you can't. You know, that's something that you, that means that, you know, the stormwater that goes into our
Right.
creek, that means that their sanitary is going into our creek.
Yeah, that's prohibited.
I was looking for the ordinance in the packet when you were discussing, so what exactly is this ordinance going to do? Assess a fine?
This to identify, you know, who's the enforcement agency and defines what an illicit discharge, and the purpose is to regulate and control and establish authority after you get your permit. Establishes the authority that the village can act on these matters. And we find an illicit discharge. What are the fines and the access and inspection, and then rehabilitation and correction of the mistake and inspection of that. And it's part of your, again, part of the MS4 permit that we try and obtain from the state.
So this is setting the legal groundwork for us to be able to take corrective action for this?
Correct.
And if we don't trust me, the county will let us know.
There may be an opportunity for, if the homeowner's under duress, I mean, they could come back for those CDBG funds.
Possibly.
So there's an opportunity there that we could offset some of this cost as well.
You might want to have to check with the county on that, because
Okay.
I believe the CDBG funds are very strict where you can use and cannot use.
Yeah, I was just reading up on it. It is strict, but I don't know if there's some other eligibility.
Yeah, part of the other ordinance sections that we submitted in line with the MS4 permit, there are some language, but not very clear how to deal with this. So the state requested that a separate ordinance to be very clear how do we do our plan and deal with the illicit connections and discharges.
The important thing is that we are addressing that and not sitting back doing nothing. Especially when we now know that there's at least two situations.
Similar ordinance that we used for other municipalities that this was reviewed and approved before. This turnaround was quick, so I don't know if the attorney want to look at this. Pretty straightforward.
You looked at it?
Looking at it.
I have asked.
Although admittedly, this is a common ordinance
Template.
to have for many communities, so I don't foresee any type of correction.
Did you just use previous template?
Yes.
Can you tell us for which cities?
City of Orchard.
Okay.
Well, there's a caveat, the liability shall be paid in not more than 12 equal payments. So there's a payment plan included in it. Okay.
Yeah, sometimes, like somebody else mentioned, it could be a large dollar amount to correct the matter, and you can't just dump it.
Is Orchard Lake a village? Or
Yes.
city?
City, village.
Okay.
Yeah, they got chartered.
So the village law, we're not an issue with the village law as it relates to this ordinance. Correct.
Correct.
My whole thing is, it sounds great and everything moving forward, from this point moving forward, absolutely. And even retrospectively, so long as our building inspector can sign off.
Well, that building inspector is probably pushing the daisies.
No, I agree, but, I mean, if he did, or he or she, I don't know.
We will have to go back into the records and see, but it still doesn't get the homeowner off the hook. What it may do is it may put the village on the hook
That's what I'm
for
saying.
put that to work. But we cannot ignore it. That's the bottom line. We cannot ignore it.
Do you know how long the homeowners of those two houses, I mean, are they the original owners that are still living there? Or
One is the original owner and one isn't.
Okay.
But they have been there probably better part of 20 years. I said these houses are probably 20, 25, if not older.
The state did get a chance to look at this ordinance, and they had no objection to the language.
All right, I make a motion to approve the illicit discharge elimination plan ordinance for the Village of New Haven, ordinance number 349.
Second.
Been properly moved and supported that we adopt ordinance 349, the illicit discharge elimination plan ordinance. Any questions on the motion? Roll, please.
Trustee Chandler?
Yes.
Trustee Dean?
Yes.
Trustee Capoli?
Yes.
Trustee Madison?
Yes.
Trustee Hezia?
Yes.
Trustee Gilbert? Trustee Primer?
Yes.
Trustee Gilbert, I'm sorry. Trustee Gilbert?
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Don't leave.
I'm not. We have two items listed here. They're kind of lumped together, but I'd like to separate them. We have the water system asset management plan. That's the one that we received a 90-day extension. And the following item would be the water system reliability study. So the asset management plan was due January 1st. We requested a 90-day extension from the DEQ. It was granted about a week ago, 10 days ago. Per council request, we sent some supporting documents of what it entails, the work that the study would entail, and the breakdown of the hours that the engineering effort will be. That's all, I believe, in your packet. So for the asset management plan, we're requesting council approval to move forward to finish the study and compile a report for the state to submit within 90 days.
And this is required how often?
Every 5 years.
5 years.
What's the SIP 20-year then?
Capital improvement program.
No, but I know, what's the 20-year? Like why, we have to show them our 5 and our 20? That's our
Yeah.
longitudinal?
Short term and long term.
Okay.
It used to be 35 for ultimate growth, but they
Yeah.
want to see short and long. They don't
Okay.
want to see ultimate anymore.
Okay.
Are any of the duties or the jobs you're going to perform listed? Can any of these be done by village personnel?
The inventory, yes, we're going to rely on the DPW to give us most of the info. And that's why you see very small hours in there. And then the asset analysis will be working hand in hand with the DPW also. Actually, the final product would be reviewed by the department also. So inventory would be the big one.
Is the village able to, I know the DEQ has online forms that can be filled out, and they mentioned something about municipalities with populations less than 10,000. Are we able to do any of this ourselves?
I don't think so. There'll be, mapping we would rely on record info that we got from previous engineering. We have to do some surveys if we're missing anything. The asset analysis will have to go into your infrastructure and analyze based on age the criticality of the condition of each asset. That means every hydrant, every gate valve, every pressure reducing station, your tank, all your lines.
That can't be done by New England personnel?
I don't think they're trained to do this, but we'll work with them. If they can take any of this time, by all means. This is a condensed schedule to begin with. I mean, normally this would be around 25 to 30 grand to come up with a plan like this.
There are some communities that are doing that on their own.
If their personnel are certified and we're trying to get your personnel certified. I believe we're sending them in April.
Yeah, something like that, yes.
To get NASCO certified for pipe inspection. Then the demand analysis, that's a hydraulic model that we built. We'll look at your rate. Maybe we'll work with your auditor and CPA on the rate analysis. But typically we take their historic information and come up with a recommendation. The programs, operation maintenance programs, that also has low hours that we're gonna get some info from your DPW also.
I think when it's all said and done, I fully expect the cost to be less than what is being suggested. And I say that because knowing that a large percentage of the village water mains were just recently replaced within the last, 10 years. And with the mapping that we're currently doing with our GIS system and whatnot, it's a lot of these things are going to be a lot easier to come up with the numbers. Okay, this whole rate analysis. I don't know what the DEQs. When do they start putting their nose into what a local municipality charge for the rates? Okay, we do generate enough money for capital improvement. Okay, but I certainly don't want the state to start telling us what we have to set our rate at. Okay, unless they're going to give us some funding to, supplement that rate. So, with that being said, in my opinion, both of these plans, or at least one of them, is a direct result of their, I'm trying to be nice here. This is Flint. Flint being extended to the whole state of Michigan.
I believe the intent here is just to make sure that we have enough rates for the capital improvement program and the maintenance portion of the system. And if there's a gap, how is that gap being supplemented by the general fund? They just want to see supporting numbers that the system is healthy. And you're not going to go bankrupt in 5 years.
We're not. The system is healthy, like I said, and they're not sending no money to help it.
Do we have a capital improvement plan already in place?
We've talked about it, we've been talking about it the last few months, and what we're trying to figure out is a way that we can take our current rates and when the bills are paid, separate a percentage of that payment out into a totally separate fund. And right now with the BSA system, it's just trying to get it, to do itself without having to, do it manually, But when you look at the water system budget, it's healthy enough to support any major project that we would want to undertake. But it isn't separated from the actual.
Yeah. Would this reset the clock on the capital improvement plan? Started at year one?
That I don't know.
Okay.
No.
What?
Probably not. This is only water related. Are you just talking about water?
Well, this is saying 5 in a 20-year program. If we're already like at year 2 or 3 of a current one, would this reset the clock where we could go 5 years out again instead of 2 years?
Well, we don't have a current one.
Oh, we do. Okay, that's what I was asking.
No, we've just been talking about this for about 6 months now, just trying to figure out a way
Okay.
of establishing.
That's why, that's why I was asking. Okay.
Questions? What's your pleasure?
I motion to approve the water system asset management plan in the amount of $14,062. And then do you want to tie it all together in one, or you want it two separate motions?
Separate.
Okay.
Second.
Been properly moved and supported that we approve the water system asset management plan in the amount of $14,062. Questions on the motion?
So just to clarify, this is a state mandated thing that we have these plans in place?
Yeah.
We put the word estimated in case it does fluctuate.
Thank you.
Estimated cost of $14,062. Any questions on the motion? Roll, please.
Trustee Magnuson?
Yes.
Trustee Beak?
Yes.
Trustee Foley?
No.
Mr. Chandler?
Yes.
Trustee Uziak?
Yes.
Trustee Freiberg?
Yes.
President Over.
Yes. The next one is the water system reliability study. And before you get started, when you look at the requirements of these two different plans, they seem to overlap. To me, they seem to overlap. With that, I'll let you speak.
Thank you. Same token, the water system reliability, that requirement been around for years. And the last one that you did, or the previous engineer did, was in 2013. This is an update. The state did change a few things around and asking for more comprehensive information to put in the study. And I believe you have a copy of Act 399, Admin Rule 1209. So there are some items overlap with the asset management plan, basically the inventory and mapping, and the some of the hydraulic modeling. The asset management, we do a demand analysis. This one we do demand and capacity and hydraulic modeling. We feed a hydraulic model and computer hydraulic model, and we run different scenarios of fire, low flows, high flows, your tank being on, system being on low pressure, all that. And then we run all these scenarios, make sure your system operates in good condition and capable of firefighting. And if you recall last month, I believe we approved the ISO testing of 8 hydrants. This way we can calibrate the system based on actual conditions. It's a lot more detailed report. And if you look at item 2, that CIP of 5 and 20, you would do 4 different scenarios for each projection. And then you split your demand for each class of user, residential, commercial, industrial, governmental, all that. You would study your quality, your capacity, your wells, supplemental the system, the pumping capacities, the storage capacity, and it's actually studying the actual system itself rather than in a broad asset management plan. So with that, we are here requesting council approval to move forward with the reliability study update for the estimated hours and effort equaling $23,146. This is again every 5 years.
If you have any questions,
This would have to be completed before we could do the asset management program?
Actually, we're gonna tackle the asset management plan first, because it's got a 90-day window.
Right, but that cannot be completed without this?
No, they work hand in hand. Some tasks are parallel. I wouldn't say we can't complete the reliability before. They work hand in hand.
But completion of one isn't relying on the other?
No. No, you don't need the asset management to put it into reliability, or vice versa.
Okay, so we're not under the gun for section 2, right? For the second,
For the second study, it is due this year.
this year?
Yes. And the way we look at it before the construction season hits in the summer, we'd like to finish all these studies. Normally these are winter and spring studies. Once you get into summer and trailing, you'll be, we go nuts until November.
Mr. Ned,
Yes, sir.
am I thinking of something different? But I thought when you came up last month, you had only asked for 31,000. And I can't find anything in the notes previous to this. But I thought when you had requested, I guess I'd have to go back and check the video.
34.
Was it 34 that you requested?
Yeah, both together. Same number.
Well, no, we're at 37 now. We're at 37.3.
30. Maybe we read the numbers incorrectly, because this is dated December 18.
Somehow the numbers aren't matching up for me, but I can't go back in our, unless it's in our, you know what, let me just check our meeting minutes.
Yeah, that's right. I'm checking the emails.
I just don't ever remember talking about a $37,000 price
No, you
tag.
had talked something about a $3,000 reduction for some reason.
it says 37,000 for the 2 studies.
Is it in our notes? Is it in our meeting?
Right, but then you had mentioned the 124, then you said there was 3,000 off for some reason. I can't, gosh, I can't read it.
What was that?
I don't remember. You had mentioned the $24,000 figure, and you said, but it would be 21,000, and I don't remember why. Good customer discount. Ah,
There you go.
there you go.
Yeah.
We found it in the meeting minutes though, or the one from out, so.
Does it match?
It was 37. You were right. All right, I'll make a motion to approve the water system reliability study in the amount of $23,146.
Second.
Been properly moved and supported that we approve the water system reliability study in the estimated amount of $23,146. Any questions on the motion? Roll, please.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Trustee B?
Yes.
Trustee Capelli?
No.
Trustee Madison?
Yes.
Trustee Giesecke?
Yes.
Trustee Fiber?
No.
President Lippert?
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Budget amendments. If you were in your packet, there's I think there's 3 sheets that have budget amendments. And I wish Sandy was here, but she's out sick. She can explain this a lot better than me. The numbers in red are the adjustments, I think those are the adjustments that need to be made to the budgets. And for the most part, if I'm not mistaken, they're positive, but there's a couple of negatives. And I just know that the bottom line is that we're $22,000 better than we had projected with the amendments. There are some areas that we are, and a lot of it's in the building department, where we're moving the wages for the secretary of the building department. We're moving a lot of the general fund because the building department is generating enough to cover the wages for the secretary. There's been some increases in, unfortunately, in cemetery activity. There's been a significant increase in permits. We got a lot more money in taxes from the state, in sales tax. So there's some numbers that have to be bounced around. Like I said, I wish Sandy was here, she can explain it a lot better than I can. But the bottom line is, like I said, on the current fiscal year, we're at least $22,000 better than what we had projected.
Are the figures in the, or the building portion, is that due to all the new homes being built?
Yes, yes. That's the majority of it. And none of these numbers take into account the projected property tax that those new homes will generate. That won't show up for another year. We've had a decrease in our liability insurance. Our liability insurance, while it only went down $1,000, we also are receiving a close to $5,000 rebate from the insurance company because of our rating of the work that's being done in the fire department and DPW for safety records. We're getting approximately a $5,000 rebate because of their safety rating. So there's a lot of things that come into play.
Was that something that we proactively realized and communicated to ask for that reduction, or did they just send us a check saying, hey, we realize you guys are doing better?
Yeah, they realize it because we meet once a year with the Jerry from the municipal league, and he kind of walks through this building, the fire department, the DPW, and does a visual inspection of things and how equipment's being handled and whatnot. And his report kind of dictates our rate. Like I said, our annual premium went down, and plus we're also getting the rebate from the insurance company. So it's going to total, I don't know, $5-6 grand. Yeah, to adopt the budget amendments. Well, like I said, some of these are small, but while we were doing, we figured we just address, all that were out of alignment, and for the most part, they're all to the good.
Did we do each one separately?
No, just no. at the packet next year.
I make a motion to accept the budget amendments as presented.
Second.
It's been properly moved and supported that we accept, that we adopt the budget amendments as presented
Do you want to specify the year?
Thank you.
for the current fiscal year of 17-18 to end March 31st of 18.
Support. If somebody didn't. No.
Question on the motion? Roll, please.
Trustee Lee?
Yes.
Trustee Foley?
Yes.
Trustee Meisen?
Yes.
Trustee Shannon?
Yes.
Trustee Gazier?
Yes.
Trustee Freiberg?
Yes.
President Milburn?
Yes. And also in your packet is a proposed budget for the upcoming fiscal year, starting April 1. And I would hope that the Ways and Means Committee, I think you're on the agenda somewhere, would schedule a meeting. And I will be at that meeting.
Can Sandra be at that meeting? Can Sandra be at that meeting?
I will hopefully she, yeah.
If she can.
Yeah. Yes, she would definitely be there.
Also, could we get a hard copy of the proposed budget for because I'm going to attend the meeting. I'm not printing 36 pages at all. Ink is too expensive.
There are some, no major surprises, but there's a couple things in the budget that I think you'll be pleasantly pleased with. Item D, STE construction and DBM utilities update. Mr. Behind, you want to come up? So there's a payment in the bills for STE construction. Can you give us an update on where we're at on STE?
Okay, as I mentioned at the last meeting, construction is pretty much complete except for the issue with the paving on Division Street, you know, the little bump area that I told you we were probably going to have to hold money to get that repaired in the spring. With regards to the rest of the contract, we've been talking with the contractor regarding certain change orders and that, and the one we do have a claim on the contractor that we intend to make regarding the excess inspection time that was accrued as a result of his operations, the time it took him to complete the project, and that I had forwarded you the one request for extras that they're kind of related requests for additional extras related to sections of the job that were pretty much final before, and I think that's kind of in response to try to balance the things, but I guess what Marcus and I are going to have to do is get with the contractor and meet with, you know, and try to work that out if we can, and if for some reason we can't work it out, then we'll have to report back to that, but I just wanted to make you aware of.
Those issues over on Delaney and Pasco and
Yes.
in that area?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought that was closed out.
We had a punch list, that's all we had left, and it was pretty much resolved, and then say when we made him aware of the inspection, you know, claims that we were gonna make, he responded with this, you know, which are like afterwards claims, and I mean, without going into detail, I don't think for the most part they're valid. So I guess it's just something that we've got to try to work out, and if we can't, then we'll report back. For the most part, we've been able to work out all the other, between Marcus and I, have been able to work out the other change order requests, and we're comfortable with any recommendations that we made, but on this one, we're not in that position right now.
Okay, because I know you guys were locked back there for 4 or 5 hours the other day.
Yes, we were. It's not the first time. So, I mean, he makes a lot of requests, and some are valid and some aren't, but I guess Marcus and I have made it, you know, we're not giving it away just because we're going to be nice guys. I mean, he's only going to get what he deserves. and that's all.
Okay.
So that's the progress of that right now. And the other thing I still have to finalize is we had the payments to the HD supply that we were making. I have to balance all that out and make sure that all the deductions are made to the contract that are appropriate on that also.
Have you had contact with the underground company that's doing the gas line work? Because I'm concerned about the sidewalk. We put in the new sidewalks on Main, and a week later they came and trenched right on the sidewalk.
Well, there's actually maybe potentially two issues, and I did just this week, or last week, late last week, I forwarded to Marcus some photos we have of the gas main next to it. And also, when they were doing their work, you know, they do their drilling machine and they have a slurry that came up in some of our trenches underneath the pavement. This was before we did the paving at the intersection of Main and Division, and we had to do some extra undercut. So I made Marcus aware that we need to get together to decide if we want to at least put them on notice about the sidewalks and also potentially make a claim for that additional undercut we incurred as a result of that slurry having to be dug out from under the pavement before we could pave it. So that's something else that Marcus and I have in progress.
Okay. What's the latest on DBM?
On DBM, their work is complete and actually they're under contract. And we met with them last Thursday to go over, you know, some additional quantity for payment. They also have some excess inspection charges that, you know, I provided them with copies of our inspection reports in case they wanted to dispute any of that. And so they're reviewing those and they're going to get back with us. But they say their work is complete and say they're under contract, under bid rather.
Okay. Question from the table?
What's DBM?
That's the underground company that was doing the camera storm inspection.
The televising.
Yeah, televising.
Yeah, so I do have a question. So we do have a change order, as I presume we're going to be making a motion on?
Sure, that's part of the payment of bills.
For this,
Is it separated?
for the STE?
You have an action on this one.
We have a
STE,
change order.
$13,311.
Oh,
Is that the part of the numbers that you said you guys are
No, this is a separate change order. I think it was, I have it in back. I think the change order itself was like for 12,000 something, and then there's a pay estimate for 13,000, but that 12,000 is in the pay estimate.
Yeah, and that 13,000 is in the payment of bills.
yeah, that's what I thought.
I think this was just for your reference to see
Okay.
what they were billing.
Okay. All right, just figured.
What's the intended amount that we're going to withhold for the bump in the road that needs to be evaluated in the spring?
My initial response is probably 10,000. I think that would more than cover it, but we want to be sure.
And we're withholding that from who?
Well, he withheld from STE. It's his subcontractor, so but our contract is with him, so, and I'm sure he's going to withhold it from them.
What was the original contract amount for this project?
933,000. Something, and some dollars, but it was 933 something.
Do we know total cost? So we're over $100,000 over budget.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's $1,048,000.
Well,
After
that's,
this change order.
if you, I guess the one thing you have to look at, if the pay estimate so far he's earned to date, 1,025, and there are, the change orders that we've approved get to that amount, but there's also been deductions and there's other things that we have to factor in. We have to factor in the inspection time, you know, as to whether we're going to charge that back to him. We have to factor in the materials that were paid, so it's, I mean, it's hard to, I'm guessing we're going to be probably between 100 and 150,000 over budget when the bottom line hits. And some of that's for extra things, extra work that we did, and some was for unknown conditions. That's what I'm projecting to be the bottom line.
But we had a date of completion in that contract, right?
Yes, we did, but that was last year.
Last year.
There's been, this hasn't been.
The only clause, but it,
That's kind of, I think we should wait a little more than that. That's just me.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's, the 10 is for, just for the paving. I mean, and as of right now, until we get these other items resolved, we have like over 100,000 in retainage. So, you know, because we knew we were going to have the issue with the excess inspection time. So if you look at the pay estimate, you'll see that there's, I think 102,000 in retainage, and normally you hold 5%, but because of these other issues, we've been holding more.
Right. If he just brings that argument, I would bring that argument. That's one of many.
That's, you know, hopefully we can work it out, but.
hey, any other questions? Council meeting dates for 2018. You have a list, and there's no conflicts with any holidays or, so I think we should approve the list that's presented.
Motion to approve the list as presented.
Second.
Been moved and supported that the council meeting dates be approved as presented. Any questions on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Audit update. With Sandra not being here, I put my foot in my mouth. I know there's been a conversation, I saw an email yesterday, I think, between Joe and Joe and Mr. Ryan Smith, and they finally agreed on some language.
We can get the update next month.
I'm sorry.
We can get the update next month.
Yes. Ordinance 348, no, I'm sorry. SimCog, we need a alternate. Mr. Chandler is our SimCog rep, and we need an alternate in case he's chilling on the back porch.
Meetings are usually what, in the evening?
No, usually the General Assembly is during the day, like at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Usually it's like 12 to 2, I want to say. And it's all around Southeast Michigan, so you never know. Sometimes it's been at the zoo, it's been at the Detroit Institute of Arts. I'm not sure where this last one was. But it's in various locations.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well,
Thanks.
We will, I make a motion that we appoint trustee Pridemore as the SimCog alternate.
Second.
Been properly moved and supported that trustee Pridemore be our SimCog alternate. Any questions on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Attorney item, ordinance 348 correction.
Good evening. This is actually the, you previously approved this amendment back in November. This is to put the unpaid water bills as a taxing. Prior to publishing it, a scrivener's error was noticed. The prior amendment had moved the section from 19 to 18. So we held back on the publishing of it, and we were resubmitting it for approval, basically just changing that section number from 19 to 18. So again, we would recommend approval of this ordinance as presented.
Motion to approve ordinance, so it's 348, as presented with the correction.
Second.
Let me ask a question. Is it 348 and why am I seeing 304?
Yeah.
That's 304 is the prior ordinance that
prior.
is being amended.
Okay.
348 is the current ordinance number that will be placed on this.
Is 348, I'm sorry. Is 348 the number that we previously gave it, or is this now a new sequential?
I'll check with the clerk, but I believe 348 was the number that was previously, which we held back on publishing, so we can still use that.
Okay, so this was just a correction to what had already been approved. Do you need a call another motion on it?
I would just.
Okay. A motion in order.
Motion to approve the correction to ordinance 348 as presented.
Second.
Did I hear support? Been properly moved and supported that we adopt the correction to ordinance 348. Any questions on the motion? Roll, please.
Trustee Madison?
Yep.
Trustee Foley?
Yes.
Trustee
Yes.
Chapman?
Yes.
Trustee Luziak?
Yes.
Trustee Frymer?
Yes.
President Gilbert?
Yes. Payment of bills.
I make a motion to pay the bills in the amount of $265,607.85 for,
Last number.
I'm sorry, yeah, totaling, I'm sorry, scratch the last one, totaling $268,770.85.
Support.
The property moved and supported that we pay the bills in the amount of $268,770.85. Questions on the motion? Roll, please.
Trustee B?
Yes.
Trustee Madison?
Yes.
Trustee Foley?
Yes.
Trustee Chapman?
Yes.
Trustee Luziak?
Yes.
Trustee Frymer?
Yes.
President Gilbert?
Yes. The Simcoe franchise ordinance for agreement, which I think we didn't approve this?
No, we didn't.
Oh, okay,
So finally,
okay. And I've been, at Mr. Chandler's suggestion, I've been trying to make contact with the attorney representing Simcoe, just to see if there's anything in it for the village. And we haven't been able to get together yet. But with that aside, the ordinance is still on the table. And what's your pleasure? It appears to be standard. I think this is a 25 or 30 year.
30 year.
30 year.
Did we approve that, is after this? Did we approve that prior to speaking with the attorney? That doesn't really give us any leverage, right?
Well, it doesn't, I don't think it makes our position super stronger one way or another, to be honest. We're going to have a conversation and talking to Mr. Addis. Typically, they may make a donation to something in the village, but as far as not an annual fee. And I'm just going after a donation to something.
I asked when this came up before, and when right away, but do we know when the actual franchise we have now expires?
It's sometime this year. Yeah, it's coming up.
Because if it is later on in the year, that's not imperative that we pass it tonight, and then we can still meet with the attorney to find out what they can provide for the village.
Madam Clerk, do you know the expiration of the current? I think it's in the first 6 months of this year. And then maybe in the first quarter. I mean, it very well. I don't see any harm. You know, say that, I mean, once it expires, they're not going to shut off our gas. But, you know, it's just something that we just need to act on.
Motion one?
Or, you know, I mean, I don't see a problem with taking it. This is better than trying to get out.
Is motion in order?
There's not a motion in order unless you want to table it.
Yeah. Make a motion to table the Central franchise ordinance support.
Is it a motion to table
Yes.
and support?
Yes.
Been properly moved and supported that we table this until February. Any questions on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We will make sure that this, all these little I's get dotted and T's get crossed. Agenda items. I'm sorry, that's yours.
February 13th meeting, just wanted to have things as soon as possible. But I know that I spoke to President Miller about this. It's kind of difficult within that 10-day time frame.
For me?
No,
Oh.
no, I spoke to you about it. Is this what you want to discuss about?
I'm sorry.
The 10-day?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, just whatever you were working under,
Okay,
your
yep.
normal, whatever your time frame is.
Okay, yeah,
No,
okay.
no, I have nothing.
Scratch that out, sorry.
No. Treasurer.
The total village assets for the end of December were $3,282,047.92.
I make a motion to accept the treasurer's report as presented.
Been moved and supported that we accept the treasury report as presented. Any questions on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unfinished business. Mr. Mason.
All right. So village manager discussion for tonight. In your meeting packets, you have what I would call a, I guess we'll say the draft or for the RFP for a village manager recruitment announcement that Trustee Chandler and I put together. You know, some of the things that we put in here as far as requirements, we do have requirements for certification, certified public manager, CPM, experience in various aspects of local management, candidate requirements we have of minimum 3 to 5 years. We do have, you know, some other things that we're kind of trying to, we'll leave off until the contract. The main point of this RFP would be to basically cast the net, see what we get back, see if we can get some good candidates in response, and then we can later go through those candidates and really decide if we want to move forward, if we want to, you know, do the interview process with anybody. So really for tonight's purposes, and Trustee Chandler, please, you know, inject if I'm misspeaking, but I think for tonight's purposes, what we're really just looking for is the approval to be able to post the RFP, which would then allow us to see what kind of candidates we can get in return. Salary requirements, I know we were talking about going through Ways and Means. This does not have the salary requirements in it, so we can put that into the contract if we do decide to get a candidate that we like and we want to interview and all that. You know, salary requirements we can include in there, so we still have the time to meet with Ways and Means.
I don't know how many flights you're going to get without some sort of an idea.
That's kind of what I'm wondering.
Yeah, you're not going to get a lot of flights.
Sorry.
You're not going to get a lot of candidates apply if you don't tell them, you give them an estimate of what they can expect back. So,
Did we go to MML, I mean, to see what other municipalities of our size are paying?
Yeah, we,
Get some,
Trustee Chandler and I went through quite a few municipalities. And really, the pay range is really, it's a wide margin. You can get anywhere from, I think the lowest we saw was 60,000. The highest we saw was up to 165,000.
225.
225,000. Not necessarily all 100%, you know, par for par with our village and budget, but for a village of our size, a budget of our size, staffing of our size, I think what we were coming up with a pretty respectable salary would be like 80,000.
plus benefits.
Plus benefits. You know, the main thing, I'm going to be, I don't want to totally steal your thunder if you.
No, I'll help you wherever you need.
Sure. You know, I think the one thing that Kevin and I were talking about, Trustee Chandler and I were talking about was, you know, we want to get somebody that's inexperienced enough that they're going to work hard to make an impression. And so we don't want to get somebody who has a ton of experience and, you know, is kind of going to blow us off. We want somebody who's going to be green, who's going to want to use us as a stepping stone onto their future, you know, future job. And in using us as the stepping stone, obviously they're going to have to perform. So they're going to have to meet, you know, whatever requirements we put into the contract. With the $90,000 salary that we were talking about, we were also discussing that one of the requirements within the contract, if we get to that point, would be to have a requirement that so much of their salary has to be offset with grants and or cost improvements. So they have to come to the table within either, I think, were we saying the first year that they'd have to have, you know, 1/3 of their salary, so $30,000 in either grant money that they have to acquire or come up with cost improvement strategies that would save the village that much money. You know, so that would offset it. So then we're really, you know, net 60,000 salary. I know it doesn't really work that way, but you know, it wouldn't be as much of a financial impact to the village then.
I think cost improvement, I think that is a dangerous inducement in existing, because they could be making cuts that could actually harm the village while saving the village temporarily.
True. Yeah, I would say, yeah, that's a good point. I think that anything that, you know, anything that they want to cut, I think should go through the council.
Oh, they would have to come to council.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to see that as a contract obligation. It's really, you're going to do a review, right? You're going to see what the person did from that review standard. I mean, we've done executive director contracts, but those were subcontracted basically. So they did have to meet certain criteria, and those were legitimately legalized through an attorney. But you know, from this perspective, I think it would be more of a review process that's actually written into the contract. I mean, it's going to be an at-will employee, if I'm not mistaken. I don't see any issues why that wouldn't be the case. You know, typical lifespans of city managers, village managers, 5 to 7 years. You know, we could do a contract for a year with a re-up 2 to 3 years. You want some continuity in that person's life, so you don't want them thinking that their job's on the line every year.
Right, certainly.
But the review status would come into play. And certainly that review would be contingent on, you know, were there grants brought in? Was there cost reduction involved? Was there growth, business growth, right? So it doesn't have to be a reduction. It can be business growth, it could be business opportunity, it could be more homes, it could be streamlined, you know, programs, entities, whatever it may be. So, I mean, I think there's definitely an opportunity to flesh that out.
Sure.
So that would come down the lines and through Ways and Means and whoever else is involved. That's where you'd see that contract fleshed out, I think. So. But by no means, we're going to look at standards and benchmarks. You know, the person's going to have to perform.
Right, certainly.
Right? They're not just going to be a body in a chair.
Right.
Doing some supervising.
And Kevin, if you want to, Trustee Chandler, if you want to mention the organizations that you reach out to for posting.
Yeah, so we did reach out to MML, SGR, SEMCOG, who else did we reach out to? The majority of them are willing to post for us, basically for free. The only one that charges a little bit higher of a rate, I think there's one that posts, they charge a one-time fee of $29. But MML, I think, is the last one to get back to me, and they charge a minimum of $25 or 10 cents a character. So it just depends on what your post is, but you could direct the post. I mean, you could say, we're hiring a village manager, see this web link, and then that's it. I mean, you don't have to put the whole description in that ad. I mean, so minimum $25, you know, in order to get the characters out there. So
Don't we normally put it on
Mitten.
Mitten?
It would go on Mitten as well. But Mitten's actually the one that's going to be the most expensive out of everything. If we decided to go that route, we don't necessarily have to do that first.
It's like $1,000, isn't it?
No, that was like $250. $250. Yeah, I don't think it's 1,000.
Now, the question I have is, do we really want somebody that is totally inexperienced?
We're not requiring anybody inexperienced.
Well, I mean, you're looking,
They have to be
you're not
certified.
requiring any prior experience.
Yeah, 3 to 5
3 to
years.
5 years.
As,
Prior experience.
City planner, manager, urban planner.
is that defined that way, or did I see municipal promotion and grade or?
The minimum 3 to 5 years and increasingly responsible management, administrative, and supervisory experience in government.
Okay, so that's somebody that is a senior court clerk. With the
Master's degree.
Yeah. No,
And a CMP certification.
well.
We're asking for the CMP certification.
Okay. And they have to belong to the Municipal Managers Association?
We put that.
Because I want to define what we're looking for. Hopefully, no one green out of the gate. We have a lot of catching up to do.
No, we don't want somebody that's green.
Yeah,
Right, we don't.
because if they're going to be here, we're going to need to put on.
And again, we're not going to pay what a top dollar municipality is going to pay. So if they get experience here and they do really well, they're going to jump. I mean, you have to expect that. But you have to realize that in order to be competitive in the next level, you have got to perform at this level. So you got to take your experience and your resume with you. And if you didn't do anything here, you're not going to be competitive at that level. So
Did you open that link I sent you about that article,
Yeah, it was,
that cautionary tale?
yeah.
Yeah, that was amazing. So,
Okay. What's the pleasure?
I'd like to wait for Ways and Means to meet quickly, and then we can make a recommendation to council for a benefits package, so that we can get this thing posted as quickly as humanly possible. Is that okay?
Can we make a motion now with that kind of rolled into the motion that we posted after Ways and Means? So that we don't gotta wait a whole nother month to come back?
No, because we don't know what Ways and Means is gonna come back with. Because the whole board needs to hear what their package is. One more month, I don't think one more month is gonna make a difference.
I agree with that. Is the benefits package, though, is that going to be any different for village manager compared to any other full-time employee in the village?
Yeah, it would be.
Oh, it could be, because one of the things you had in there, I saw was the 401, and right now we don't, you know, what we pay into, we don't contribute. I mean, our contribution is minimum for our employees.
but they still have that.
Yeah, but
It's, yeah.
That's contractual and defined for an actual employee. It's fluid,
Sure.
but what we have to do is look at the benefit packages and healthcare and pension, and any other vehicles. Are we going to be allowed to use a car? You know, get 91 Taurus or something. But there's something. Oh, okay, Chevy.
so the
But,
package,
yeah, so we have to look at it.
But I would just stress the Ways and Means, look at a range that you're comfortable with, to bring back that range. We don't have to settle on
We'll look
one,
at benefits too.
one one specific salary, right?
Right.
Because we could get in cheaper in the door,
Or something
possibly.
commensurate with experience.
Right. At least probably, I would say a 20,000 range. I would look at, mileage. I would look at the benefits package, matching contribution, 401k, et cetera.
And they have that information on the MML website. So
Correct.
Well, we could do some research.
And that'll give you the ability to at least be competitive. You know, we don't have to be top of the line competitive, but if we want talent, we can't scrunch on that.
Okay,
So,
we can't.
yeah. Right.
Could I do have a number in the budget.
Oh, do tell.
I won't tell. No.
Just kidding.
No, there's some other variables that ways and means.
You gotta tell me what you're gonna come up with.
See if your number matches my number.
Yeah,
Is that in
exactly.
the 2018 budget you just told us would be, is that in the 2018 budget you just said would have some nice surprises in it?
Oh, spend your time, you know, just going through item by item.
My concern going into it though, without any clearly defined benchmarks or anything like that, is it does turn into a $100,000 chair. I mean, even if that person doesn't move on or whatever, we're on the hook for that amount of money, got nothing for it.
It's a one-year review. The private party is dissatisfied.
I'm cheap, $100,000 is $100,000.
I know that.
But I would also
Preach
encourage
to the
you
choir.
to look at what we've possibly lost over the last few years by not having some oversight within the office on a consistent and routine basis. And that exceeds that number.
That's not-
What do you, how do you say,
Yeah.
propose so? I'm not doubting, I'm just,
Yeah, I don't know if we should talk about it, but I would say what we're in litigation for, what we're in,
Should never happen.
yeah. I would say some of those instances could possibly have been prevented. I'm not saying, I'm not saying a what if, but I'm saying if you have some continuity and you have some oversight, chances are those might not necessarily slip through the cracks, so. But I get it.
Moving on. Have you set a meeting date?
No, we're gonna do that in the new business. No, is it? Oh, no, that's the next time. I'm done talking with the RFP.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Are we done? Okay. Meeting date for Ways and Means. You guys figure it out. It's gotta be soon, hopefully sometime next week. Anytime that you guys are available. I'm retired. I got nothing going on. Yay. Yay for me.
Next week would be the best time because I'm going into negotiations right now at work, so.
You guys will be,
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday,
Tuesday I have, Wednesday the 17th.
17th?
Wednesday? Yeah.
Okay. 6 o'clock, 6:30,
6:30 or 7.
7? 7? Okay, 17th at 7 o'clock. And if you could ask Ms. Kiesel or whoever in the office to make us hard copies of the budget, both budget.
What's Wednesday?
Wednesday the
It's
7th.
Wednesday, 17th, right?
7 o'clock.
Okay.
Mr. Mason.
I'm actually deferring this one over to trustee Chandler.
Oh, yeah?
I believe this is for the wise process. This was your item early.
Yeah, so I'll give an update from the zoning board, and then, if you need to fill in any details from the planning meeting, then you can. Wise Buys came in front of us from the zoning board, or in front of the zoning board, and was looking for, variances on 3 separate counts. We denied all 3 separate counts, in a couple of reasons. We had a great dialogue, but one, we didn't want to set precedents for other businesses. So that's one of the main reasons that the variances were denied. However, that being said, Norton is very cooperative and very interested in making sure that he is in line with our ordinances for his property. So basically what we've recommended without costing Norm more money from an application perspective, is to come in front of Planning Commission and work with Planning Commission over the course of the next 6 months. In that time frame, though, Norm has assured us that what you see from a vehicle perspective behind the main fence will be moved and relocated somewhere else. We don't know where that is, and it's not really for us to care about. But the vehicles, the storage aspect, if you will, of that property is now basically being disseminated and will cease. While he's trying to do that, I assured Norm that I would come before council and ask that code enforcement be lenient for the next 6 months as he's taking as much opportunity to work with Planning Commission. Planning Commission has recommended that he goes back through, gets himself a site plan, drainage plan, all of that for his property. So while he is working with them, again, that's kind of what we've asked as the pleasure of the council, is to be lenient on him as a business owner who is doing the right thing, who is trying to make sure that he falls in line, again, with our ordinances, etc. That being said, Planning Commission will also work with him on his U-Haul business. The U-Haul business, and again, we'll work through this over the course of the next 6 months, but that's not necessarily a storage business. What that is a service. He's included a service, which potentially, depending on how you want to interpret it, and we'll see how Planning Commission interprets it and then recommends it to council, because it may come back to ZBA, it may just come straight to council. Based on that interpretation, if it falls under general business as a service, then that's at the pleasure, again, of Planning Commission and the council. But that will be decided over the course of the next couple months, and that's what we've recommended in order to do, is work with Planning Commission in order to get that in line as a business. He has a lot of ideas for that corner. It won't stop at just this. There is the potential to tear the building down and put what he hopes to be a possible strip mall, something of that nature. But he just, financially right now, based on the market, coming out of the market, that's not an opportunity he can pursue at the moment. So right now, he's trying to make sure that he compensates himself, essentially, or at least leverages himself with the other business opportunity. But he has assured us that the storage goes away. So he said that it will take him a couple of months to get those vehicles out of there. My guess is that bought and paid for winter storage, the people will be out of there probably towards the spring. My guess is that's what's going on. But again, because he offered the opportunity to work with us, we've offered the opportunity to work with him. He's been in the village for several years. That's what I bring forth to council, and we can have a discussion about that. So. And then you can fill in from Planning Commission.
Yeah. Thank you. So Trustee Chandler really presented it well, from the zoning aspect, from the planning aspect. He did come to the last planning meeting looking for guidance from the planning commissioners. Basically, as Trustee Chandler mentioned, we told them to go ahead and fill out the special land use form, which includes everything from the site plan, everything. There's a whole bunch of requirements that are outlined in there. Instead of coming to us with just the verbal discussion of what he wants to do, since we told him that he needs to come before us with all the hard documentation, and then we can review it and give us something to chew on before we can make any decisions. So I know that he's looking to work with us. Seems very open to it. Did we want to pause and have a discussion on that before I go through with the planning update?
Yeah. So is his intent, it sounds like, okay, so behind the fence he plans on moving all the stuff that's there for storage. So, but I didn't hear that he's intent on discontinuing the U-Haul service. So would I be right in assuming that he might be planning on moving the U-Hauls behind the fence? It flies directly in the face of against general business zone. He's own general business, which is neither here nor there. It looks bad. It looks really bad. And that's our main vein. If we got, you know, a new subdivision, I love him, I really do. He's a great guy. He's a great guy to work with, and I'm glad that he came forward. I think we should work with him as much as possible, but I think it would be a gigantic mistake to permit him to continue to use that front yard space as a U-Haul rental. I mean, just the other day, I don't know what it looks like today, and it seems to kind of change day by day. Some people come and rent them, and then 4 of them will be gone, and then the next day there'll be 6 of them back out there in the front. But there were literally 6 trucks plus a couple of trailers off to the side in that small little space, which already is against code and because it was built, you know, eons ago. But it's right, it doesn't have the green space between crash it and the building and all that stuff, which again, that's you know, grandfathered in, it was built before that, I get that. But to, you know, allow, I mean, it looks bad, it looks real bad.
What I would say to that is you gotta give us some time.
Yeah.
He may tear out the front part of that fence, that might be the recommendation from planning, that he tears out the large part of that fence, and there is no fence blocking it, and he moves those vehicles back, and it actually gets paved.
Right.
You gotta give it some time.
Yeah,
This isn't gonna happen overnight.
the special land use that, you know, with the site plan that we're recommending that he comes back to us with, you know, the formal documentation. He was hesitant on the site plan as far as what would be required or what our expectations were. So I haven't seen it myself, but I know when he was describing it, he was saying, you know, he paid an engineer to do a lot of the, you know, measurements and a lot of drawings. And then he mentioned that he hand drew in the parking spots. I'm assuming that was for the U-Haul vehicles. So until we really get the special land use or site plan or really just anything documented in front of us, I'm not really sure what his plans are, to be honest. So, you know, hopefully the next monthly meeting he'll be presenting more information to us.
And we have the option to reevaluate after 6 months, and if nothing's been accomplished, nothing's been done, the enforcement gets moving again, you know?
I know you said special land use, but when I was looking into this earlier, I didn't even see like a special land use for general business, unless you wanted to rezone it or otherwise address it some other manner, but I didn't even see a land use for special land use for general business that would allow such a U-Haul.
And one thing you forgot to mention is Jeff's working with him as well.
Right, yeah.
So Jeff has taken that on and asked, and Norm actually asked him if he would help him, and Jeff accepted that job.
Yeah,
So,
we'll work with Jeff and I believe also Commissioner Kappa
yeah.
on a more informal basis, not as an official representative of the planning commission.
Would there be anything that you could update us on in 3 months, this progress?
Really, it's all up to as soon as Norm can give us some documents and some stuff for us to look at. I'm hoping that it'll be this next month.
And then we can be updated on what.
No matter what, we'll have an update though. I mean, either he didn't do anything or he did.
Right. To be honest, I was kind of expecting the same here.
Yeah, because if there's no motion, no movement at all in 3 months,
Yeah.
you know, we could be beating a dead horse here, so.
Yeah, and I can check with the other with the commissioners and with Jeff to see if he's reached out even just to communicate.
Could we ask him to please just neaten it up a little bit? Because if you've got vehicles parked like this, and it looks like a delicate something.
I talked to him about that, and he said, well, you know, they drop it off. I guess the whoever rents the U-Haul just drops it off, and they don't even check in with it or anything. And I told him, well, maybe you should incorporate some sort of policy. He goes, well, U-Haul doesn't allow us to stipulate the policy of the turning or something. So I don't know. It's frustrating.
We've rented, we've had to check in.
Yeah.
Right. I know, that's what I think so too.
I run it and just drop off to the, so.
Right, I've done the same in Richmond.
But did you leave the parking
He's
lot?
out there bringing them up and.
I'd really like to see more effort.
Okay.
Yeah. So, so that's the wise buys. As a general planning update, you know, some of the things that I wanted to bring forth at the previous planning commission meeting, we had Mr. Benjamin from Code Enforcement present. He presented basically just an introduction to himself, Code Enforcement, let all the planning commissioners know, you know, who he is, what he's doing, the progress that he's made thus far, what his procedure is as far as, he went over how he'll get a complaint, he goes and visits the property. He will do a canvass of the immediate area, whether it's the street or the neighborhood, looking for similar violations. But one thing that he mentioned, and one of the commissioners picked up on, is that, when he sees similar violations, he'll write down the addresses and he'll take it back with him. So it's not necessarily that they get addressed the same day at the same time. And so that could lead to some individual saying, well, I just got written up for, my camper in my driveway, but then the neighbors are saying, well, I didn't. Well, they might in a few days. So he takes that information back and he has to get who the owner of the property is and all their information, and then he can go through and either mail the violation to the individual, the warning, or the next time he's on site, he'll leave the information with the other offenders, if we want to call it. So it was a good conversation. I think it gave all the commissioners a good overview of just what's going on as far as code enforcement is involved. But it was also a two-way street. It was nice to have him at the meeting so that we can also kind of just tell him, hey, if you're running into difficulties with ordinances or things that you're noticing, to let the planning commissioners know, because we are going through a lot of the ordinances, the signage, the zoning, and all that. So two-way street. He did not say that he really noticed any issues with the ordinances, though. To be honest, I was kind of surprised that he said that. Also, I did send out the final draft of the market study to everybody. Looks really good. There's the appendix, which includes the data that was used to build the table, which then says whether or not we have a deficit or a need for businesses. So it's all really interesting information. I definitely recommend everybody peruse it and take a look at it. For the public, it will be posted on the village website eventually. I just checked today, though it's not up there yet. They're just looking for the proper place to post it. So all really good information. It's something that we can also then tailor depending on the businesses that we want to market. So some of the information that was in the appendix, it actually breaks it down to a different level as far as, you might have grocery as a high level. Then it breaks it down into the subsequent layers of what really makes up that category. By doing that, we can be more targeted in who we're approaching business supplies to bring them into the village and try to attract their business. We can tailor the information in there to them. And on the note of bringing in businesses, we mentioned previously about Aldi's. There was a little clarification that was brought up in the previous planning meeting that it won't be necessarily a formal tour for Aldi's. It's more of them driving through the community, our community as well as some other communities. It's not necessarily like a formal tour where we may or may not actually meet with them at all. It'll just be them driving through and taking a look at the community, and hopefully they see they like what they see, and they can come back to us and say they're interested in putting a spot up in the village. Last but not least, President Dilbert was at the meeting, gave us some guidance as far as keeping everybody informed, communication protocols, and also called for, or definitely made the recommendation that we hold elections at the next meeting. So the plan for the next planning meeting will be to hold elections for the officers. That's it.
Any questions? Moving on. Yo and yo.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, would it be possible that a representative come here from Yo and Yo to kind of give us an update?
They were supposed to, I think they're scheduled to come, and I sure missed it.
I believe it was after they had finished this current audit. They
The
wanted
current
to
audit, they were
present
gonna
the
make
2 years.
Yeah, they were going to make a presentation.
But they haven't finished the current audit.
That's the question that I had, was about the current. I mean, what's our status, what's the holdup, what do we need?
Answering the questions now. It's in the final stages.
Yes,
Okay.
in final stages.
No, I'm seeing the emails back and forth of the exact wording that they want
Yeah.
on the report before they can type it up.
Okay, all right. So, but they are gonna come once they have.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, they are.
okay, thanks.
New business.
Yeah, again, quick question, lots of questions. Are we reviewing the vendor report and the submitted by the prior village engineer?
Yes.
Okay. Also, cemetery benches. The 3 benches that popped up on Gratiot behind the sign, the lit sign,
2.
is it 2 or, okay, 2. Were those part of a bulk purchase for the cemetery?
No, they were part of a bulk purchase.
Okay, but they didn't come out of cemetery fund?
No.
Good.
That came out of Park and Rec, and the 3, I think the 3 in the cemetery came out of cemetery fund.
Perfect, I had a resident ask me about that, so, okay, thanks.
Yeah, but they were purchased because we got a better price by buying all 5 at one time.
Very good, thanks.
Call from the floor. Mr. Jordan.
Rick, I'm sure you all know me, Mr. President. I'm curious about conversations you had earlier about the cross connections with the sewer. And I had just a couple questions, but made a comment before, and you know, a lot of you are new and probably, but going back, at least 30 years ago, we went through, it was about the time that we were just getting involved with the Detroit sewer system, and we had to go through a major sewer separation program, and we did a lot of TVing, and we spent a lot of money separating the sewer. And this has got to be 30 plus years ago, if you remember, probably Chris. And I guess I find it odd now that we find that, oh, here's 2 new, cross connections. And I fail to see how that can really happen if we're really on top of things in the village, because there's along about that same time, going back 30 years ago, when we did an ordinance that specifically lays out, who has to connect, who has to pay for what. There's a capital service charges that have to be paid. There's connection charges that have to be made. Who's responsible for making those connections into the particular systems and so forth. And if that was working, we wouldn't have this happen if it's less than 30 years ago. So I'm just curious that we need to, I guess, chink up our cracks if some is sneaking through the cracks, because that should never happen. And the only way that you'll ever find it is if you have to go back and screen everything again. Might I ask, and I don't want to ask specifically, but what streets are these on? These 2 connections that you're talking about?
They're both on Marlow.
That's in the Roney subdivision? Okay.
Same street, same side of the street.
Okay. Well, obviously, somebody got in there, made connections, and didn't get the DPW involved.
Yeah, there's probably no inspector on site.
And I suspect that what happened back then, because during those days, a lot of capital service charges were sold in bulk to raise money for another project in the water system someplace else, and that's probably how it got through the cracks. But in any event, no one should be accessing that system except the DPW department. Even though they sometimes use contractors to do it, they should designate, here's where you got to dig, here's where you got to connect it, and make sure it's done correctly, water and sewer, sanitary and storm. So, okay, now, that's all of that. What if there was a need, I'm thinking of Victoria Street now. We still get a lot of problems there with stormwater along Victoria Street. And on the east side of the street, there's beyond William Street, just slightly beyond William Street, going towards Shook Drain. I don't think there's any storm drainage at all. And I would like to make a request to look into the possibility of either some ditching or just so that from like from Hunters on that side all the way down to the Shook Drain, and there is some ditching on the other side. It starts kind of well, there's no ditching there, but it probably starts from the depot parking lot, the north depot parking lot, going towards Shook Drain, and but coming back this way from the drain, that floods something awful every time we get a hard rain and that. And even though there's a drain there, it doesn't seem to drain. And if we might request, I'm requesting on my behalf, but on behalf of everybody on the street, if that could be taken a look at, and maybe just open drain it until we can do better. Thank you.
Call from the floor.
Since it's the first of the year, I just want, in the last year, we made a lot of little projects and gotten them done. And we couldn't have done it without the support of all you. And I just want to thank you for all that you've supported us, for the, some of you, voted things that we needed, but many of you have given us input, which has helped us because I'm not a smart man. And a lot of knowledge that you guys have given to us has helped us streamline certain things. So I just wanted to say thank you for the first of the year, and that's the last time I hope I'll be up here.
Call from the floor. So we have an item on here to go into closed session to talk about a couple things. We did? Yeah.
Make a motion to go into closed session at 8:42. Second.
Yeah. Supported them going to closed session. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Can we get a motion to go back into open session?
I make a motion to resume the open session.
Second.
Been moved and supported that we return to open sessions. Any questions on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We were just getting legal updates in closed session on pending legal issues. Call from the table.
Got one inquiry, just an informal inquiry. Hopefully we can get an update maybe next month or something. I remember, it's been a while, it's been like maybe a year or so, but we, the council made a motion and we put forth, I don't know, it wasn't that much, it was like maybe $1,200 or something like that, toward a lawsuit. There was a bunch of municipalities suing the state of Michigan for revenue sharing, improper revenue sharing. Do we ever get an update on that? I know what that said.
We've heard nothing. I've heard nothing where that is. Yeah, there was that was being led by. Yeah, exactly. And well, we didn't actually participate in it.
Well, we did.
No, we didn't contribute to it. But because the fact of the matter is that if they won, we were still gonna benefit. And that was based on the revenue share where the state was withholding. Yeah. So I don't know where that is in the state.
Maybe, can we get that?
I can.
Call from the table.
I just wanted to give a reminder that the medical marijuana committee meeting is January 11th, this Thursday, at 6:30 PM, not 7, 6:30 PM. No, I'm just pointing that out just because most of our meetings are always at 7. So.
Call from the table. Motion in order.
Motion to adjourn.
Aye.